Welcome, everybody, to Krystal, Kyle, and Friends. Today, we're going to be talking to Peter S. Goodman. It's always official when you have the middle initial in there.
Yeah, that's important to get in there.
Yeah.
Next book, I'm doing Krystal M. Ball, just to add a little bit of
It does.
respect.
It really adds, like, people are like, damn, there's a middle initial
There's
in
no
there?
real
Like, I gotta
wrestling
listen
Krystal
now.
Ball, though. You just kind of lean into it.
No, but you know what? The middle initial might throw people off to the fact that your name is Krystal Ball.
Think so?
You know what I mean? Yeah, because the middle initial is just like, it's powerful.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, it's powerful. Mine is messed up, though, because it's Kyle E. Kulinski. My middle name is Edward.
Mm-hmm.
And when you spell it out, it's Keck.
There's nothing wrong with that.
It doesn't have the same sort of, like, nobility that every other middle initial has.
I'm KMB. Yeah, I actually engaged in a lot of strategies in life to sort of make people not really notice my name is Krystal Ball. Like when I'm talking to, customer service reps or whatever, I'll always lead with the last name and spell it and then do the first name. So, they don't necessarily put it all together because it is sort of unbelievable.
But some people don't even notice it, even if you say Krystal Ball.
That is true.
And then other people immediately are like, Krystal Ball?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's funny because you could get a sense of, like, who's more present.
One of my teachers growing up that I had multiple years in elementary school, who I was relatively close with. This is when I was in like kindergarten, first, second grade. I was in a play and her sister came and she was looking at like the, little program they give you for the play. And she saw my name and she was like, Krystal Ball, that's a funny name, to my teacher. And my teacher was like, what are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
She'd never noticed.
Never noticed.
It just never occurred to her.
Yeah.
Anyway, we digress. Peter Goodman is the author of this book, Davos Man, How the Billionaires Devoured the World. He's also global economics correspondent at the New York Times.
Is it Davos or Davos?
Davos.
Is it for sure?
Yes.
This is one of those things where, like, I'll go back and forth 1,000 times.
It's Davos.
Okay, I'm going to say Davos.
Okay.
Just to get under your skin.
Whatever you want. Whatever you want. That's fine. Anyway, it's an excellent book. Exposes many of the crimes of people like Jeff Bezos, of Blackstone, the way that they have rigged the system, the way that this is so far from a free and open and fair market that it's just absolutely absurd, including some of the just theft that they committed during the pandemic and what that all looked like. So very, very excited to talk to him.
Yeah, I'm going to guess the overarching theme is billionaires. Not good.
Yeah, yeah, you pretty much got it.
Which is something I'm inclined to agree with.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about Biden gave this pretty big press conference. He hasn't really spoken to the media almost at all since he's been president. So he did this really big, long press conference. He talked for a long time.
It's like the longest in modern history or something like that.
They had to pump him up with so much Adderall before he went out there that he was just like, come on, hit me. I'm good to go. But there's a million moments we could talk about. I know on your show, that you and Sagar talked about a bunch of different moments.
Mm-hmm.
Two stuck out in particular to me. So why don't we go ahead and throw it to the first video, then we'll react.
I did not anticipate that there'd be such a stalwart effort to make sure that the most important thing was that President Biden didn't get anything done. Think about this. What are Republicans for? What are they for? Name me one thing they're for. And so the problem here is that I think what I have to do in the change in tactic, if you will, I have to make clear to the American people what we are for. We passed a lot. We passed a lot of things that people don't even understand all that's in it, understandably.
Yeah, and whose fault is that?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea that he didn't learn, he thought that the Republicans were going to work with him this time.
Okay, so let me float to you, because he said that was big online. People were talking about it, and everybody is sort of taking him at his word that, like, really? You're that naive? Like, you're that silly? That's, like, how dumb are you? But I have a theory that, and I don't know if I buy this, but I'm just floating it.
Okay.
No, he knew they were going to act like that, but it's sort of, instead of actually passing, like, Bernie Sanders-esque stuff or decent stuff, or even just the things that were in Build Back Better, which isn't full Bernie Sanders stuff, it's just sort of standard, decent stuff, he would rather have them obstructing as the excuse to get a lot less done, because getting the less stuff done is more in alignment with his philosophy for his entire career, because he's also a corporate Democrat. I mean, he's no Joe Manchin, he's no Kirsten Sinema. They're worse, but you know, he didn't, like, my theory was even in the Build Back Better negotiations, he sort of wanted Manchin and Sinema to slim it down. He didn't want to get nothing through,
That's true.
but he wanted them to slim it down.
That is true, but I don't know that he's operating on that kind of level of strategery. And look, the man has stood for a lot of bad things throughout his many decades of his career.
Crime
and he
bill,
has this just like
Patriot Act,
yes,
Iraq War.
Basically wrong side
Right.
of almost every significant issue, right? But he has consistently held on to this almost like religious faith in the ability of like sensible bipartisanship to come up with real solutions. Like this is to the extent that he has a core ideology instead of just like a basket of slogans and whatever the donors want him to do. This is actually core to the ideology. And so remember when he was running in the primary and then in the general election, people would be like, there's no way these people are going to work with you. Like, what is your actual plan to get things done? And I looked up some of the comments that he made. You probably remember him too. He was like, just watch me.
It'll be like a spell is broken.
He said they're going to have an epiphany.
When Trump's gone.
That was the language. Once Trump's gone, you can already see it happening. They're going to have an epiphany. You just watch. They're going to come to the table. And this wasn't just like once or twice. This was consistently brought up by him. So I really think that he is out of it and disconnected from modern Washington enough to have thought that these people who he considers to be his friends, and he's very relationship driven. He doesn't have an ideology. He has like, you know, a basket of friends that he thinks he can like sweet talk into doing things for him, that he really thought that was ultimately going to come through for him. I mean, the only reason they even got the infrastructure thing done is because Wall Street and the Chamber of Commerce were ultimately pushing for it. But imagine spending 8 years in the Obama administration and still holding on to this notion that the Republicans have any interest in doing anything good for you or good for the American people.
Well, that's why the conspiracy is not an impossibility. I mean, I tend to agree with you, but that, you know, he actually does sort of hold on to this naive view.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you were Obama's VP, you saw that Mitch McConnell literally broke the filibuster record. I mean, we're talking about a Republican Party under the Obama administration that became so extreme, they started saying no to their own policy ideas. Because Obama always, I mean, the healthcare debate is the best example of this. The real left position is single payer. The compromise position is public option. And then the right-wing reform is what's called an individual mandate system, which is keeping the for-profit health insurance companies in control.
Yeah.
And you just mandate people have to go buy from those companies.
Yeah.
That was an idea that came from the Heritage Foundation. That's a right-wing think tank.
And implemented by Mitt Romney.
Chuck Grassley, Newt Gingrich, Mitt Romney. These are all people that supported that. But when Obama finally, and this with a supermajority, he was like, well, fine, we'll do your idea. He got not a single Republican vote. So you're telling me Joe Biden watched all this unfold and his genuine thought was, the only reason is because it's Obama who's proposing it. They just don't like Obama.
I think that is how he thinks about it.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Such a stupid analysis.
100%. It's the dumbest analysis you could possibly have, filled with hubris. Right, that you think you're somehow...
I could have done it better.
I mean, and this is where there were a few moments in the presser that were quite Trumpian. This is a Trumpian type of thinking of like, oh, well, once I get in there, I'm going to be able to cut the deals that other people weren't able to do because of the specialness of my talent and my relationships, et cetera. But, you know, if you're him, you were in the Senate for 40 years, effectively. You were vice president for 8 years. So the bulk of your tenure was working with these people in the Senate who, again, you considered to be your colleagues and your friends. And you kind of had a clash of cultures between Barack Obama's style of governance and Joe Biden's style of governance. Obama being very removed, being very intellectual, sort of disdaining the actual arm twisting and relationship building of politics. Biden being that old school, backslapping, relationship driven person who was actually derided as sort of the, you know, the fool or the anti-intellectual within the Obama White House. So I do think that's what Biden told himself is, oh, well, Barack Obama was just doing it wrong. Once I get in there and I have these relationships and they've seen the error of their ways with Trump gone, it's going to be a new day. I don't think he's lying when he says he was genuinely surprised that the Republicans didn't like roll out the red carpet for him.
Yeah. So there's one part there where he makes a good point, but it's amazing that like he's the one having the epiphany on this at this late date.
Yeah.
He's like, well, what are the Republicans for?
That's a good point.
Yeah, Joe. What have they been for the past 5, 6, 7 decades?
Yeah.
I'll tell you exactly what they're for. They're in favor of more tax cuts for the wealthy, subsidizing big corporations and bailing them out, including Wall Street. And they're for endless culture war stuff where they can virtue signal to evangelical Christians and to the anti-woke crowd now.
Yeah, to like boomers on Facebook or whatever.
That's literally all. And now also virtue signal to anti-vax folks. That's it. That's all they've got. And so for you to bring that up now, turns out these guys aren't for anything. Yeah, and if you had paid attention and acted objectively for a split second over the past however many decades since you've been in Washington, D.C., you would have realized that. But still, okay, so that point is fair from him, but that still misses the broader point here because, yeah, I got it. The obstructionists are going to obstruct. Why aren't you talking about Manchin and Sinema? Why aren't you calling them out directly? Why aren't you threatening? I mean, so you brought up, well, Obama was like the intellectual. Biden's strain of thought was like, well, the anti-intellectual, but the old school backslapping politician. There's a third option. The third option is called the enforcer. That's LBJ. That's FDR. That's the guy who twists arms and plays the role of the mafia boss in order to get his way. That's the only way in the modern political era you were ever going to get anything done, especially with the stranglehold that corporate money and billionaire money has on Washington, D.C.
Well,
you have to actually be committed to the ideology, committed to what you want to do, and then you have to, break a couple eggs to make a few omelets in order to get it done. And he didn't call out Manchin or Sinema directly in any way, shape, or form. And that's why they're going to keep getting away with everything. If you had ads running, if you said, you know what, we're running, let me show you the new ad that we're running against Kyrsten Sinema in Arizona, and let me show you the new one we're running against Manchin in West Virginia. And it talks about their corruption. It shows how much money they took. It shows how they flipped their positions and all that stuff. You could force them to the right position, especially, I'm sorry, but you know where this rant is going, but the bottom line is, yeah, I got it. Yeah, Republicans, they're the problem. Of course they're the problem. I expect them to be the problem, the elected Republicans in Washington, D.C. But the people in your party are the only ones that are actually obstructing the agenda. Them and your complete weakness in order to try to make some exceptions to the filibuster or go back to the original talking filibuster, sign some fucking executive orders.
So I think that there is a good case to make that Joe Manchin is the only Democrat who effectively can get elected statewide in West Virginia. And so that is used a lot of times as a shield to say, well, would you rather have a Republican in West Virginia? At least Joe Manchin's going to vote with you some of the time. But what Biden is proposing now is, all right, let's break Build Back Better into chunks and let's bring it up individually. Well, there's two ways you can do that. One is to pick the extraordinarily inadequate milquetoast pieces of Build Back Better that Manchin and Sinema might already support. I don't even know what those things are at this point, but it's nothing too exciting. And make it uncomfortable for Republicans that they're not on board with those things. Or you could pick things where you're going to have divides in the Democratic Party, probably not just with Manchin and Sinema, but some of the other corporatist Democrats, and make it uncomfortable for them, make them face tough votes. So they can't hide behind, oh, it's a big bill and there's too much spending and inflation, and so I'm the responsible one and I'm doing what's right for my constituents. No, so you actually have to put Joe Manchin on blast on being on the wrong side of an issue that's 80-20 in West Virginia, something like paid sick leave, something like prescription drug reform, though something like, adding hearing aids to Medicare. Things that are exceptionally popular in West Virginia where there is no way for him to get around that, that's the sort of thing that could actually make him and Kyrsten Sinema uncomfortable. But my expectation, if they do decide to go in the direction of, okay, we're going to break up Build Back Better and just try to pass these individual pieces, is they are only going to bring things to the floor that every Democrat is already on board with, in which case you're going to get effectively next to nothing. And you've just outsourced your agenda to Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema.
What they could do, and nobody even talks about this, we have the conversation about the filibuster. Okay, good. We talk about that all day long. There's a million different ways you can get around the filibuster, eliminate the filibuster, or weaken the filibuster, or go back to the original filibuster. But there's also just the idea of you can give yourself more cracks at reconciliation. Mm-hmm. The way it works right now, you get, 2, 3 shots at reconciliation? It's one of the two. Those
Well,
two
remember,
options.
the parliamentarian ruled that they could actually do more reconciliations than they had originally thought. That was something Chuck Schumer sort of investigated. So you could have multiple reconciliation bills with a couple of, let's say you put paid sick leave and, prescription drug pricing reform together and just try to do that.
If you give yourself 10 cracks at reconciliation, you could put individual issues through reconciliation, and then you put pressure on them, and you can make the issues overwhelming. Like, for example, in the middle of a 2-year raging pandemic, paid sick leave. Okay, you want to vote against paid sick leave? Fine, but all we need is 51 votes. Here's the bill on just paid sick leave. We're doing it through reconciliation. I dare you. I dare you. Go ahead.
Right.
And if you do the wrong thing, I'm going to end your political career, and then you're not even going to be able to get a job afterwards. Okay? That's what you do. Child tax credit. Try to do that through reconciliation. Give yourself more cracks at reconciliation. Try to do it through that. You only need 51 votes, and you dare them. Okay? But he doesn't have this in him, and we know he doesn't have it in him.
Yeah.
Because the other thing is, again, he could just sign some executive orders right now that would make his approval rating bump up 5-10 points, and he refuses to do it. Let's go to the next video because this is also crazy.
Why are you trying so hard in your first year to pull the country so far to the left?
Well, I'm not. I don't know what you consider to be too far to the left. If in fact we're talking about making sure that we had the money for COVID, making sure we had the money to put together the bipartisan infrastructure, making sure we were able to provide for those things that in fact would significantly reduce the burden on working class people, but they have to continue to work hard. I don't know how that is pulling it to the left. If you may recall, you guys have been trying to convince me that I am Bernie Sanders. I'm not. I like him, but I'm not Bernie Sanders. I'm not a socialist. I'm a mainstream Democrat, and I have been. And mainstream Democrats have overwhelmed me. If you notice, the 48 of the 50 Democrats supported me in the Senate on virtually everything I've asked.
I'm not Bernie Sanders. Yeah, that's the problem. Have you looked at his approval rating and have you looked at your approval rating? Yours is at 33%. He's still the most liked Democrat in the country, and in some polls, still the most liked senator in the country because people know that Bernie Sanders, agree or disagree with him, is fighting for them. He's fighting for working people. This is what drives me crazy. This conventional wisdom, manufacturing consent that somehow permeates all of the elites in Washington, D.C., where you get questions from Doocy Dickhead, why are you pulling the country too far to the left? Then you get Joe Scarborough on MSNBC asking the same goddamn question today. Why are you pulling the country too far to the left? These are majoritarian positions. If you looked at the polls for Build Back Better, almost every single issue was polling well over 50%. Some were over like 70%. And what does he do? He follows them right down that path. I'm not Bernie Sanders. I swear I'm not popular. You guys can keep hating me out there in the country. Who are you talking to, Joe? Who are you talking to? You're talking to a bunch of elite media people who are not looking out for your best interest, and they're not objectively describing the situation. If you were smart, you would run into Bernie Sanders' arms and start doing his policy agenda by any means necessary, whether through executive orders or through doing more cracks of reconciliation or getting rid of the filibuster or whatever it is.
Not to mention how you really undercut your own message when you throw Bernie Sanders under the bus and demonize him as an extreme. When people know Bernie is out there selling your agenda, Bernie helped to craft the, original Build Back Better and put the provisions in that are exceptionally popular across the country. So you're really sort of undercutting your own message and your own agenda there. But the problem with Biden's presidency is that he went too far left is driving me absolutely bonkers.
And he
the only time he did anything that was remotely left was at the very beginning of the administration when they sent out one round of checks. And guess what? Your approval rating was 55% then.
57 was the highest. It was then
it's
57.
Totally reversed. You were 12 points above water. Now you're 12 points underwater. So back when you were doing some more kind of left things, people liked you a whole lot more. The problem is not that Joe Biden has moved too far to the left. The problem is Joe Biden hasn't done anything.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Totally failed strategy, totally failed vision, totally failed tactics on every single level. So what are the top three issues that Americans say they care about? Healthcare, the economy, and climate change. What are you doing on any of those three things? Throw the left-right spectrum out. Think about what people actually support and what they want and what they would make a difference in their lives. And that's why he sort of, by, throwing Bernie under the bus, he basically accepts their framing of, oh, those things Bernie Sanders wants, those things are extreme. But what Joe Biden want, those are mainstream things. Well, guess what? Bernie's out there advocating for your agenda. So what message do you think that ultimately sends?
Lowering prescription drug prices, that polls at 73%. Lowering the Medicare age, that polls at 59%. Universal pre-K polls at 59%. Tuition-free community college polls at 58%. Extending child tax benefits polls +9. It's 9 points over water. Raising taxes on wealthy business owners, 68%. Increasing the capital gains tax, 66%. Raising income taxes on those who make more than $400,000 a year, 64%. Increasing the corporate tax rate, 62%. Every single thing I just laid out for you was part of the original Build Back Better plan. And what did Joe Biden do? Laid down in a chalk outline of himself, gave a pen and paper to Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin and say, you just write whatever you want, and then we'll try to pass that. And now he turns around and has clearly internalized the media's criticism of him that, like, the problem isn't that you didn't do anything. The problem is that you went too far left and you did too much.
Yeah.
And this is what drives me crazy. And this is how powerful the media is because, yes, this is what manufacturing consent is. They are so aggressive with this narrative that the problem is that Joe Biden was too far left that even your average Drew who doesn't follow politics closely is like, I don't know, maybe that was the problem. Maybe it.
Well, and they have two narratives that don't make sense together that were both evident in this press conference. Actually, we played a little bit of both of those moments. One is, you're not getting anything done. What's going on? Your agenda is hamstrung. And the other is, you did way too much and you went way too far left. Those two things do not compute, but they don't seem to really notice that. And the other thing, why are people like Joe Scarborough, David Brooks, Chris Matthews,
Tom Friedman,
all these people, Jen Rubin, why are they all coming out in this united voice to say the problem is Bernie Sanders and the left? Well, it's because the failures of the Biden administration are a direct repudiation of them and their ideology. We didn't want Joe Biden. They wanted Joe Biden. We didn't want neoliberalism and all their like confusing means testing and income phase outs and block grants and all this stuff that makes it hard to rally the public behind an agenda because they don't even understand who's going to benefit. You are the people who want that. This Biden administration is late stage neoliberalism. That is exactly what it is. That's exactly what all of these legacy media, pundits, and journalists fought for and pushed for and secured. And the fact that it is an utter and complete disaster now, no. That's at your feet. That is at your feet. We tried to warn you that this was not going to go well. And so you don't even try it, turning it back around on us and pretending like, oh, the problem is the left again and they went too far. He hasn't even done anything. When he did do a few things at the beginning, he was popular.
That's right. Control room, cut to my tight shot for a second. I have a direct message for these goons in the media. This is for David Brooks. This is for Thomas Friedman. This is for Joe Scarborough. This is for the Ducey, who's so irrelevant, I don't even know his name. I just know he's the son of the guy who's an idiot on Fox News. This is for you. This is for everybody who's been pushing this narrative. Own it. This is your governing philosophy in action. You wanted the centrists, which really are just corporatists and status quo defenders, and milquetoast neoliberals who like to tweak around the edges. This is what you wanted. This is what you called for. This is what you're getting. And you know what? The president's approval rating is 33%. That's not my guy. My guy was Bernie Sanders. He's the only one who still has an above water approval rating in the Democratic Party right now. This isn't what I wanted. This isn't what Krystal wanted. This is what you guys wanted. So now you got it, and now you're going to own it. Take the L. Hold the L. And I don't want to hear anything, any more articles about why you got to blame the left, why you got to blame Bernie Sanders and all that stuff. Every single Democrat who ran on Medicare for All in 2018 won. Now, did any of you guys who are so objective and above the fray, did any of you guys look at that and go, well, hold on now. Well, this would indicate maybe we should be running on Medicare for All. No, you didn't. In fact, you ran away from Medicare for All at 1,000 miles an hour. So the reality is you're not objective. You're not empirical. You're weasels, and you always punch left and blame the left, no matter how much it's your own failing. So I'm here to tell you, Enough's enough. Own it. 33% approval rating. It's all yours.
And the sad thing is that they're not negatively. I mean, they're protected from the whims of the economy.
You fail up in mainstream media.
They're protected from, the price hikes. That's not going to bother them and their wallets. Yeah, they'll continue to fail up. They get prominent positioning for their terrible, Biden should run with Liz Cheney takes, or maybe Hillary Clinton's the answer next time around takes. And the other thing is, guess who benefited more than anyone and profited more than anyone off of Donald Trump in the White House? These very same people. I mean, he rescued their outlets as much as he liked to go after the media. The fact of the matter is he propped up CNN. He propped up MSNBC. He propped up all of these mainstream outlets, got so many new subscribers, so much new interest. And with him gone, their numbers have fallen off a cliff. So the sad thing is, Democrats are doing everything they can to pave the pathway back to Donald Trump in the White House.
That's right.
And these people who pretend to be so upset about it, they're going to be the ones who actually benefit and profit and get more rich and more book deals and more famous off of his next horrific, damaging, dangerous term.
In mainstream media, they always fail up. It happened with the Iraq War. It happened with every war that they pushed for. It happened with all the conspiracy theories that they pushed that were dead wrong. Russiagate, for example. Everybody who was dead wrong every step of the way got promoted. Everybody who was right got axed and was roadkill. Jesse Ventura was against the war. He never had his show. Phil Donahue was against the war. He was axed. Now we're seeing the same thing. The same people.
That's when he
Chris
got
Hedges,
axed.
that's right.
For
The
New
same
York
people who are wrong about all of this stuff are the most prominent voices, and it's what the American people have to hear every day in mainstream media, and they should be sick of it, and I'm certainly sick of it.
Well, we've got a great example of that. Okay, so you are going to be shocked to learn, Kyle, that this story that we have been spun, that there's some mysterious Russian brainwave weapon that is afflicting the men and women serving overseas in the State Department, turns out that is totally and completely false.